Okay, hello and welcome to our second Office 365 end user training. We are doing this to help those users who are now remote and using a lot more of their Office 365 tools. So we're hoping that we can help show you some new features and functionalities and help you be more productive while working from home. So with that, I am going to turn over to Tina. If anyone has any questions throughout, please use the Q&A and I'll be monitoring those and interrupting Tina as we go along to make sure that all you guys are getting your questions answered. And if we don't get to it, I promise that we'll follow up with some recordings and valuable resources and make sure that we get all the questions answered. So with that, I'll give it over to Tina.
Thanks, Christy. And thank everybody who is on the call today. It was great to see so much participation last week and questions coming in from you guys. So keep that up this week. If you have any questions or unclear as we're going through some of this stuff, I definitely want to know. And then I also just want to make sure you guys are aware Sean Farrell is on the call with me today. He's going to help with this demo and also help with questions wherever we need. The one thing I wanted to start with talking to you guys about is the difference between Teams and Zoom. So we got a lot of questions last week because we were sharing some information around the conferencing tools and how to use them in Teams. And so a lot of questions came in about Zoom. It's another tool, we're using it right now. And so I just wanted to highlight really quickly for you guys that Zoom's great. It's a great conferencing platform. And Teams is actually a conferencing platform, but it's also a collaboration hub. It has all the integrations with Microsoft and even some applications outside of Microsoft. And so when you think calling, document platform, chat, collaboration, securing your documents, all of that's happening in Teams. So it does have the conferencing bits, but it's a lot more than that. And I wanted to make sure you guys were aware. And also when you think about like the document piece, you know, we're talking a lot about collaboration and chat, but you can also move all of your documents and have kind of your cloud storage living here in kind of behind Teams and SharePoint, but that's for another day. So just want to make sure you guys are aware that that's kind of the difference between the two platforms as we go through this. So the first thing that I wanted to cover with you guys today is how to join or create a team. So I've brought Teams back up for you to see. And if you were going to go ahead and create your own team, you would come down here to this little blue icon and click on join or create a team. So you have a couple options here. Your first option is to create a team. So we can do a quick one. I just clicked on that button and then I'm going to build a team from scratch. There's two options again, and one is to create from an Office 365 group. So some of you may be part of Office 365 groups, and if so, you can create a team based on that. Or you can build one from scratch. They're also going to allow you to choose whether or not you want to make your team private or if you want it to be a public team. Public teams are great for like company-wide teams. We have one called All Staff. Anybody can join it. It doesn't have information that would be specific to any one group in the organization. If you have information that you find is you'd rather not share out with everybody in the company, then you would want to choose private just to make sure that you control who's coming in and out of that team. You do want to give your team a name. I'm going to do demo for the sake of this. And then if you want to, you can add a little description here for members of the team. When you invite them, they'll be able to see that and understand why they're being asked to join the team. So that's as simple as it is. Now I can go ahead and start adding people to the team. So I can just invite people to this team. So I've got Sean on this call. So I would invite him into this team, and then Christy as well. And I'm going to go ahead and add them.
We just had a question come in.
Okay.
Someone was asking, what is the minimum version of Office 365 needed to use Teams? So maybe you could talk about the licensing required.
So I think, I mean, the minimum license, would it be E1? Sean?
Yeah. So E1, which is essentially, I'll give everybody's going to probably ask about price point. So it's online through Microsoft, or we sell it directly as a pay-as-you-go, but it's $8.25, which gives you, and as Tina's saying here, like not just Teams, but things like Office, Word, Excel, and all that web apps. So you're getting access to them via the web if you're a remote client. But then you can go as low as, there's products in Teams where you're just using Teams only for $5. And to be honest, I heard Tina say Zoom at the beginning. You can personally create your own Microsoft Teams platform for free as an individual user, but I'm going to say we're not recommending that because, again, I think where people are struggling with Zoom is they've kind of created their own Zoom stuff, and then it kind of creates havoc within the organization as everybody's trying to use it.
There's different plans for licensing and Microsoft licensing. So, you can do like business plans for your small businesses, and there's price points for each of those, and they all have Teams capabilities, essentials, premium, and the limitation there is the number of users, right? So if you're going to go up above 300 users for your company, you don't want to use a business SKU. You want to go up to an enterprise plan. And then here's a list of the enterprise plans. E1 is the one that came to my mind, and that's the foundation of that series of licenses. And then if you're in education or government, there's different licensing. So if you have, if you want to chat in depth about licensing, feel free to reach out. We have experts here that can help you. But we need to know kind of what you're trying to accomplish, what other pieces of the licensing you might want to use, as well as how many users, if you're a for-profit or nonprofit. There's a little bit of complexity to it.
And then Tina, the question came up. There's like a few of them already, which is good. We'll answer them very quick. What apps can I get inside when I'm using Teams? Like, what do I actually get? And this came up a lot. I had a good call this morning with a guy who's in the healthcare environment up in Oregon about Teams. So Teams is the video, audio conferencing. So you guys can have audio conferences if you enable a call-in number, which a lot of companies have not yet, meaning if they have a dial-in. It also includes, of course, chat. Included in Teams is then access into your Office 365 environment. So picture like a pyramid, right? Teams sits at the top as the hub for the way we do business. Below that, the document management platform it really sits on is SharePoint. So when you guys see Tina creating Teams, sharing documents, or saving documents, ultimately, they're being saved in SharePoint, and that becomes your new file storage or file sharing system or document management system. And then inside of that, as you have Office 365, you're going to see all of your email through Outlook, your Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and we talked about it last week, put PDFs and other third-party applications in there. So that's the basics. You get the Office 365 with Teams apps platform, and again, that becomes the hub for your communication across the organization. And then Dan had asked one of the question here, Tina, can team members, outside of the organization participate using Office 365 in a Teams meeting?
Yeah. Are you saying if they're, well, it's probably hard for them to clarify. I think what you're asking is if the person doesn't have, if the person is not in your organization, can they be a part of a Teams meeting or?
Yes. We have two questions just like that. Yes.
Yeah. And the answer to that question is yes. Absolutely. You can invite people outside of your organization to communicate and share in teams. They can have their own team, and they can also join your meetings.
And we're here to train, and so I'll say this, and Tina and I, we talked about today, this is improv, by the way, where this is a live feed. We ultimately know that people want to call in. They have their cell phone and they don't want to download the Teams web app or the Teams app on their computer sometimes. So you go to kick off a conference in Teams and you're like, everybody says I can't get in. For $4 per user, say Sean Farrell wants to be able to create a conference or an audio bridge with an 800 number or some number assigned by Microsoft, we can do that. You have to do it per user in your organization if you want to have your own sort of dial-in conference bridge. That gets asked quite a bit. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, so basically, if they're not in your organization, they can still access the meeting dial-in and all that. But as far as some of the other things we're showing you, they wouldn't have access to all that if they're not a Teams user, because people are asking about Teams users versus non-Teams users. So
Yeah.
you can certainly hold meetings with those people, but unless they have a Teams license, they're not going to be able to get into this application of Teams.
Okay. So what we've done here is we've created a team and we've added a couple of members, and you can see they're already part of the team as a member. I can continue to add members, but I'm not going to do that. I think you guys get how to do that. The other little bit I wanted to show you is this box here. You will also see if you click join or create a team, and this is join a team with a code. And so when I created a team over here and I invited Sean and Christy, they didn't have a choice in whether or not they wanted to be a part of this team. I just added them as members. So the code function allows you to create a code and then send it out to people, and then that gives the users a choice on whether or not they want to be a part of the team. So if they don't need a choice, if you know they're going to join, you would do it with just create a team. If you're unclear of whether or not they're going to join with a code, then, or whether or not they even want to be a part of it, then you'd have them join with a code. And you can generate the codes by coming over here. I'm going to try and highlight my cursor so you guys can see what I'm doing, clicking these little ellipses, and then you're going to manage the team. When you manage the team, if that's the team that I wanted to manage. Actually, I don't. I want to go. Sorry, guys. Let me go to this one.
And while you're doing that, Tina, I'll answer another question that keeps coming, but a good question because it got real confusing, and everybody who's out there struggling with these conferencing platforms. When you, if you want to bring people in from the outside, they're not inside of your organization, which we all have a lot of, there are various options both on licensing to buy. You know, like I mentioned earlier, if I went through Managed Solution and bought a $4 license, I would create a call-in, dial-in number for people joining my Teams bridge or video conference, and I could also have the link. And the customer or partner or whoever, the friend, has the option to join in via either or. To be able to obviously view the video part, you have to have the link, web app, or application downloaded to your computer or mobile device, whatever that may be, Mac included. So I hope it answers that. The other question that came up is if you have an extra license with the phone number, meaning if you, I guess maybe that's not a clue. If you have an extra license with the phone number, can they also join the meeting and be part of the video and see you and you see them?
They have to be in front of their computer with like a camera, right? So a lot of times the only reason you'd need that number is so that they could call in from their cell phone.
Oh, yeah, that comes up a lot too. I call in, yes.
Computer, then, I mean, yes, they could, they would have to be in front of a web camera and be on the computer, I would assume, for video.
Okay.
Okay, you got that one?
Great, yeah, they said that answered it, so thank you guys.
Yeah. So over here, we're back to kind of managing it. We're generating a code now instead of just adding people, right, arbitrarily. We're going to give them that choice. And so you can go here to Teams Code. And I just went to this Settings tab and click Generate. And now I can create a code. I can share that with a bunch of people that I think should join the team. And then they get to choose if they want to or not. On that note, we'll kind of stay here. We're talking a little bit today about the management of the team. So again, to get to that, I'm just clicking on these little ellipses and using this Manage Team. And this gives me the ability to really customize the team. So I can add users here. I can also remove users from here. If I wanted to take a user out of the team, I would just click this little X. I can do this because I own this team. So if I am invited to a team that I don't own, this option will not be available to me, but because I created and I own this team, I have the ability to add people and also remove people as I need to do that. On the channel side, there is some management here that you can do. You can add channels from this top little purple button. And then you can also dig into how you want the channels to show up. We also did a big Teams cleanup for this team, the sales and marketing team, and it's giving you the option here to look at all the channels that we deleted, so that you don't lose them forever. Like, they are still here. Somehow you can see them, so you can kind of keep track. So we're trying to keep it to about 7 channels on this team. And this is telling you who they show up for, and then allows you to have that description. Settings we hopped into for just a bit. Team picture, if you want to add a team picture, you can do that. This one up here is a default one that Microsoft threw up there. You can get granular with the permissions that you allow members to have. So like I said, if I'm a member of a lot of teams at Managed Solution, I only own one. And so all the others, I'm subject to whatever permissions the owner gave me. So I can decide as this team owner what I want to allow my members to do. If I want to allow them to delete channels, in this case, I don't. If they can add or remove apps, I'm okay with that. So it's really up to you as you look through these, how you want to manage your team and how much contribution you want from other people that are joining your team.
We had a question come in about the admin settings. Is there a master global admin, or anyone can become an admin of their own team and channel?
So if you're in an organization, you can create a team. You can, and I have customers that have set up like policies or, decided that they only want certain people in their organization to host teams. And so that's something that you can do at an organizational level in terms of, who you want to be able to create a team.
And then we have another question, which I'm just going to answer it if everybody can see that. Can you do Teams on your cell phone? And the simple answer is absolutely yes. You can use it to just hit the button and join a meeting. Your video on your cell pops up. Your Teams are there. So you can actually do everything from your cell phone just as well, so long as your little fingers can move around quick enough. But yes, you can from a cell.
Yeah, my power was out this morning, so I had to do my meetings on Teams through my cell phone this morning, and it worked perfectly, so.
Yep, so we do, and I love Teams on my cell phone. We use it all the time. There's some other deeper permissions here. You can choose how the app mentions work. So we showed you guys last week that you can app mention a teammate, and then it notifies them that they have been mentioned. So I have these turned on. You can app mention a channel or a channel name. If you don't want to have those turned on, you can turn them off. We talked about the code. And then there's a lot of fun stuff in Teams. Like, you have all these GIFs and memes and stickers, and it can help while we're all remote, especially, have a little emotional connection, build a little bit of culture, convey something more than just words. And so I like that function of Teams, and I always use it.
It gamifies things for us internally, you guys who are listening. Like, every day we have celebrations on great tickets we take, or new clients, or we had a new baby this week with one of our employees. And so people are downloading pictures and quick, emojis, and ultimately just communicating quickly through our all staff channel, which has everybody in Managed Solutions. So it's really cool to do it that way.
You get to infuse a little bit of your personality into it. So I allow it. You can. Maybe you don't want to have it for whatever reason. You can turn that stuff off. So it's really
And one of the cool things, Tina, was showing up above everyone was the mentions. So we could be in sales and marketing, and Christy could be creating with her team some marketing collateral, but maybe she wants to publish it to all staff. So she'll just put the at all staff, and then that reverts up to the all staff channel. It's really cool if you're going outside of your own individual team to communicate something else. We do it all the time to create quick communication.
Another thing that's interesting for organizations is the analytics tab. So if you are somebody that is thinking you might create a team, you can really come here and see how much engagement you're getting. And then that can help you determine what you might want to do differently if you want to drive more engagement into your team environment. So it's kind of a fun little data point for you of how are people using these teams. And then also maybe a determination if you're somebody that's managing teams, if nobody's using the team, then you can decide to go ahead and archive that team.
How do, Tina, two good questions. How do you turn on notifications on chat or in chat so people know they got a chat from somebody?
So we are going to go up into settings. There's also settings up here where that enables you to determine how you are communicated with in teams, and we're going to hop into there next.
And then the other question I'll just answer real quick was Slack compared to Teams, and Slack's a phenomenal program. I'm not going to say it's not. Pricing on the two. Again, I'll answer the question with Microsoft has Teams embedded in a lot of their Office 365 SKUs already. So if you have Office 365, you probably own it, unless you have some very basic SKUs. But the starting point for Slack, typically for true organizational, work, is about $6 to $7 versus Teams is about $5, and that's very high level, I hope, in that answer.
And then lastly, there are a lot of apps that you can embed into your teams, and here's a place where you can sort of find them, right? So really quickly, I was going to actually show this team because I think Christy did this, but it's a channel within a team called CIE. And if you look up along here, and I'll highlight my cursor for some of you who might have a challenge with a smaller screen, there are all these tabs. And so what we can do is we can create integrations to add more information up along this pane for our users. So we've got a video here embedded. There's a PowerPoint on how to conduct a virtual CIE. We're big doing that for our customers and friends in the community. There's a calendar. I'm not going to sign in for that because I don't want to take the time. And then if you hit this plus mark, you can see that there are all these other integrations that you can add into your team site to maximize the functionality of your team. So it makes sense to try to understand what you guys are already using, and then if it will bring value to the team site, go ahead and get those apps connected.
One example that we're seeing a ton of right now is storage, everyone. You see the Box app on there Tina has up, or Dropbox for that matter. A lot of companies store through different platforms, and so they want to just bury some of their storage of where they keep data in those things like Box. So you can add Box, for example, to your team, whatever it might be, sales and marketing in this case, to be able to find data within. So it's really cool, some of the hooks that it has into other platforms.
And then I want to make sure I answer that settings question. So up here where my picture is, I have the ability to have control over what my settings are. So right now my setting is busy, and again, it's following my Outlook calendar. There's integration there. I have a meeting on my calendar for right now, so my status is reflective of the fact that there's a meeting on my calendar. Teams knows this. It just knows that I'm busy. But I can also manually change that if I want to. I don't have to follow my calendar. I can send a little message. This to me is like your out of office reminder in email. So if you guys if you're really in teams, you have people that are pinging you and they expect immediate responses, you might put a little message up here if you're going to be away for a bit to give them some information about when you're going to be back. And you can tell them, how long, you can customize how long this message is going to pop up to show people. And it'll automatically turn off within that given time.
Tina, can you step back for 1 second on the analytics section? Could you show a little bit more about, and then really the question is, how do you get analytics on the team, like what people are doing? And while you're doing that, let me answer with, if anybody's using Office 365 out there and hasn't looked at the additional apps in there, such as My Analytics and Delve. Delve is a tool that's kind of looking at what different users are up to. Not so much snooping on their email, but I would say more so like what were the last documents they logged into, or that last collaboration across an Excel file that finance shared. It's kind of a unique feature. And then the other thing that came up here was, the single sign-on component. When I think maybe that Office, app that came up for you for, what was it, Word or whatever, Tina, a second ago. So Active Directory Federation services create single sign-on ability. So if you're in Office 365, you likely have SSO turned on. And sometimes the apps themselves, if you haven't logged into them before, potentially a new app, it's going to ask you to authenticate for the first time, and then you can click the yes button to not have to log in the next time with, whether it's directly or using like multi-factor authentication, which a lot of companies are doing too these days.
Okay. So back to the...
How did you get to the analytics though, Tina? You clicked the ellipses on the team?
I did, yeah. So you have to own the team, I believe, to see it. And I own this one. So I clicked these ellipses. I went to the manage team, and then it's along this top pane here.
Perfect.
I clicked on the analytics.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we saw that path.
Yeah. So I'm going to take us right back up here. I want to make sure, because I kind of feel like I put a question off that somebody asked around notifications in Teams. So I went to my picture, I clicked on my picture, and then I hit settings, and it's bringing me to this screen here where it's going to allow me to customize my experience within Teams. So I can customize how I want Teams to show up. I don't know if you guys are seeing all those like high contrast, or, people don't like the light. I guess it's the white light is bad for your eyes. So you can go with a darker screen or a high contrast screen, so you can play with some of that stuff. You can also manage your notifications. So you can tell Teams how you want your notifications to be delivered to you. So you could get it along the banner, and the banner is this, you can see over here, this little left-hand side is your banner alerts, and it'll pop up a little red number that's gonna give you that notification. You can also get them via email. And so you get to play around with how much or how little you want Teams to cross over into your email to notify you of when things are happening.
Good question here. Analytics, it creeps out customers and what's happening there. So are the users' data sent to Microsoft? So the answer is anything that's stored inside of Teams, anything from the chats that you guys have to the documents you share, obviously they are sitting on the Microsoft Azure cloud, on the SQL database, on SharePoint, on Teams. So they are held by Microsoft, of course. Are they looking at it? I hope not, but ultimately that's what they're up to.
And I will also just add though, I manage people at Managed Solution, and so I use the Delve tool all the time to kind of see what is going on, and it just kind of gives me information on what's topical to people in the organization. But beyond that, I'm not really seeing, it doesn't feel like I'm spying on them. It's not like I'm watching exactly what they do. It's shared content that I have access to, that they're interacting with, that I might think, oh, I should probably take a look at that too, if that's top of mind for Sean, who is my boss. So that's more of how I like to look at it. So you can manage your notifications, and then there's some other permissions here, how you want your audio devices to connect. If you want a camera. And this is just giving, again, maybe this will help with some of those concerns around privacy. You could turn off your location, turn off your notification, turn off your camera if you choose to do so. And then we do call each other in Teams, and so you can configure your voicemail here, and then you can also configure how you want your ringtone to sound and that kind of accessibility. So I want calls to ring to me. I could choose to just forward them straight to my voicemail. So there's a lot of ability to set some really granular permissions and settings within Teams. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I think we're right at 5. Do we have any other questions on that have come in?
Yeah, Tina, the question is, they're asking, so it seems like there's a lot of topics around, I'll call it security. I saw a bunch come through, so compliance, but so Teams, I mean, Teams has a lot of granularity like you showed today, but there are other tools that I think we're going to talk about in other trainings that are really outside of Teams, that are just in general security tools to allow for certain documents and other things to be sent and sent securely. And I could just chime in and say, in your Office 365 suite, simple things to think about, simple things are, you know, how do I create rights around documents that I store, or send, or email, or even rights around things that go through my chat, like sending social security numbers or, you know, certain financial documents. All that stuff is part of a security platform inside of Microsoft Office 365 that allows you to do things like, you know, two-factor or multi-factor authentication, or, you know, what we'll consider rights management or data loss prevention. All those things are just additional tools and policies as part of what's called Microsoft EMS that you have to set up and then figure out within your own organization, how do you want to govern? Like, what kind of policies do we have? And then we set up the rules, managed solution or whoever your IT provider is, to make sure those things are enforced. Very granular.
And I always think about it as, you know, this is kind of a foundational layer of putting all of your documents somewhere and connecting all of your users, but then you can layer on top more security if you want with some of the additional products that are out there and available across the ecosystem. So kind of what Sean was alluding to, if you want to really dig into information rights and protection and data policy, all of that is definitely available.
Yep.
Yeah, and to piggyback onto what Sean said and circle back about asking the differentiations between Teams and Slack, I would say that Teams is like light years ahead as far as the security factor goes. I mean, there's a lot of compliance and security features just naturally built into Teams that makes it a lot more secure than Slack. We did have another question come in about some of the settings that I want to make sure we answer before we wrap up. The question is there a setting where you can mute automatically during a call so the rest of the people in the team are not making noise while someone is speaking? So do you have the ability to mute others?
To mute others. So if you're in a meeting, like a conference call, and there's 4 or 5 people, can you mute somebody in the call?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I think if you're the owner of the meeting.
Click on their picture. We don't have a meeting set up right now, but you just click on their picture and you have the ability to mute them out.
Maybe. Or you can just hang up on them, right, Tina?
You can kick them out of the call too.
No, but there is one more product that Microsoft makes. We got this great question last week because it is confusing. That's what we're here to help as a company, is help dispel that. But live conferencing from Microsoft is really that big concept of having a global audio video conference, and you, the moderator, ultimately can do everything from there. Mute people, mute the audience, keep people from seeing each other. I mean, all of the above. So yes. Is there a way that you can see more than 4 people on a conference call? The Brady Bunch question that comes up all the time. And there's a couple of, we're on it now, but there's a couple of different video options that you can set up where on the bottom of the screen, you can see all your participants. But right now, Teams is, if you're not using Live Conference, which is their big platform, you're going to see 4 people at a time with all your little people in the corner with their little pictures. And when they go to talk, they're going to chime in. So it is a challenge at this point. There are camera options that people purchase. So we have a camera in our conference room that does, and again, we don't have conference rooms right now, but that does sort of a live audience view of everybody in the room. And it actually hones in on the person who's doing the talking at any given time, but you can also see a peripheral of everybody else and how they're reacting. And here's that great question again. Why are we using Zoom instead of...
Can I add to that too, Sean? Sorry.
Yeah.
But I did see the other day, because this question comes up a lot about the 4 people in the conference. Microsoft's working on it, And if you go to their forum, which I'm going to include in the follow-up email with this webinar recording, a link to the forum where they're talking about it. There was an update as recent as January of this year that they're in progress of building it and fine-tuning it. And you can actually go in and vote for this feature to let Microsoft know that it's something that you're looking for, and you can stay updated by checking out that post. So that'll be included in the follow-up email.
And a question came up the last thing. It's a good question. Why are we using Zoom for these meetings rather than Teams? So internally, we use Teams, and externally, we use it for hosting conferences. A lot of the time, there's some training involved in using these platforms because people get wrapped around, all these different teams and groups and all that. And so for these particular trainings, honestly, Zoom's been easier to just get a couple people on a call. But from here on out, we're going to try to get into where there's a conference bridge and ultimately a Teams app that people can load. And that's been the bigger issue. So people can join it that way. But it is something that has been asked. I don't have an excuse for it. I would just say Teams is the primary platform we use. We've just been using it for these trainings, Zoom, because people have been using it over the last few weeks. But what we are hearing, and this is
we did choose Zoom because it does make it easy to integrate with our HubSpot software too.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah. And it's also, for these trainings specifically, it's a lot easier to demo Teams from a separate tool than being in Teams, just to give you guys the full experience. So it'd be kind of like Inception if we were using Teams to demo Teams a little bit. So I think Zoom, when you're talking about Teams, it's easier to use a separate platform to demo it.
And let me just finish. I know we're over time, but just by saying this, so we're getting a lot of calls. I think that there was 12 million Teams accounts set up last week alone at Microsoft. So we're getting tons of calls around people who have now set it up and who go, holy cannoli, no cuss words there. I am noticing that it can do so much more. And my simple answer is yes. And I would highly suggest that we look at, how people are going to start looking at sharing documents and storing data, creating teams, because this stuff, just like Slack, just like other, I think Slack's pretty much the only comparable program, can get out of hand when people start making up stuff and not having governance around what they do. So it's super important you set it up right and not just think about it as an audio, video type conferencing and chat tool, because that's not what it's all about. It's really to become, or it's meant to become, the central way in which we do business in our organizations. And I think, personal opinion, longer term, we're going to see more and more organizations switch to this just for that reason, because it's just so simple to use.
Okay. Are we good? Do we have all the questions wrapped up?
Yeah, I think that's everything. So you guys, thanks so much for your engagement. Again, we'll be here same time, same place next week. So we hope we'll see you then.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.